coffee break for the last half of the European DiGA Con. We have a very special program now, which we never tried before, but I'm very happy that we will do so now. It's like a little Eurovision Song Contest for digital healthcare, because we will have various European nations pitching to you their current digital health approaches and also their plans for the near future. And it's my pleasure to be not on stage alone, but together with my dear colleague and the organizer of this entire event. And you may all have received already several emails from her. Without her and her work in the last, I don't know how many weeks and nights, we would not all be sitting here. Nataliya Bogdanova.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and please excuse the majority of emails that I sent out. It was for a good purpose. Now we are collected here, we're gathered here, and it's my pleasure. My mic is
on,
still not on.
Can we switch it on?
Hello. Brilliant. Thank you so much. We're focusing for another 60 minutes. We're pressing through a heavy program. We have multiple speakers on stage, multiple lovely talks, super topic, and I just received a statement from our colleagues from the technician point that we have more than 1,600 people watching us outside, so a warmly welcome to all of you guys all over the world. Warmly welcome to all of you nice, lovely people being today with us in Berlin Congress Center. Again, I'm handing over to Henrik because 60 minutes, they go very fast. Stage is yours. Welcome the first guest, please.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes for every country, and we will start with Marnix Denis from Belgium. Marnix, are you ready? You are ready, already sitting at your desktop at home. Marnix is the managing director of BMedTech, that is the Belgian Federation of Medical Technologies. He is very much working on a more value-based healthcare and very strong driving force in Belgium for more digital market access. Marnix, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be able to represent Belgium at such a large stage. So let me dive quickly into this because we only have 5 minutes. If you would go to the website www.mhealthbelgium.be, there you would find a Dutch, French, and English version of the framework which has been set up over the last couple of years in cooperation with the authorities and the industry. And the main purpose of that website is to provide information to healthcare professionals and the broad public on the mobile health applications that are considered approved, interoperable, and reimbursed. And its limit is the CE-marked medical devices. So this is the overview of this pyramid, as we used to call it. The competent authority is the agency which looks whether or not the medical device is indeed CE marked and whether or not the distributor or the manufacturer is known by the competent authorities. Then the eHealth platform, which is also an authority, looks at whether or not the application is able to safely connect. And we have some bench tests that manufacturers have to go through with their applications. And then the last stage of the pyramid is whether or not the application is considered as an application that provides value add to the healthcare system and is reimbursed. So level 1, a little bit more in details. We will skip over that relatively quickly. We are checking whether or not the device is indeed, or the application is indeed CE marked, and whether or not they are in line with the EU General Data Protection Regulation. Level 2 is pretty much technical, it's more IT related. Really, you have a couple of criterions. If you want to go and see the details, there is the link below. It morely has to do with user authentication, interoperability with existing data warehouses, and identification of the person, so that the data that is transferred is indeed really the data of the patient and not the data of someone else. Last but not least, this is the most difficult part, and I think today there's a lot of discussions on the value of mobile apps and how they can be reimbursed or funded through which kind of system. So we now have a framework, we have a template, we have a procedure, we have a first application, a cancer patient follow-up application that went through the procedure and is now in the second stage that the application has to go through a working group to define really the value and therefore a price setting that can be set up. So we have some success, we have a framework, but I have to say it goes relatively slow, and I'm jealous of all the countries that will come after us and are maybe faster in getting mHealth applications funded. So this is a list, a screenshot of our website with various applications, and you see that most of them have a green triangle on the top right-hand corner, which means they are in M1. If they are orange triangle at the top right corner, it is M2. And as you can see, there is none of them yet which has a blue triangle at the top right corner. So unfortunately, officially, we don't have an application yet which is in level 3, at least considered by the authorities to be in level 3. What are the biggest challenges we are facing in this whole process is lots of confusion and couple that with a lack of understanding. And if you do the two both together, then it means that you don't make a lot of progress. So one of the challenges is definitions. Are we talking about what are we really meaning when we say an mHealth application? Do you need CE mark or not? Do you need to have healthcare professionals being involved with the patient follow-up or not? Or is it just the patient by themselves? So there's some confusion there. There's also some fear around the data. That's a topic that very often comes up and leads to delay, I think, in many instances. And then you have also the topic that typically comes up is interoperability and data sharing between electronic patient records that are in hospitals or not. So there's also a lot of confusion whether or not that has to be done, and is that mandatory or not, and whether it's really desirable, because uploading all kind of patient data may not be a good thing, because at the end of the day, the physician who is following the patient does not know which data is relevant and which one is not. This is an overview of all the things that people are talking about when you talk about mHealth. And as you can see, it's only what we are taking care of is the right-hand corner with the circle around it, where you talk about teletherapeutics and tele monitoring with or not without sensors and digital diagnostics. All the rest is also digitalization of the healthcare, but is not in the field of mobile health applications, at least as we are defining it. And so one of the things that this Congress maybe can help with is to have everybody on the same page with regards to definitions. I think that could help a lot. So confusion in the Belgian case, very slow progress. We feel that in 2017 we had a conference, and we are now 4 years later, and we have barely 1 or 2 apps which are funded. And it seems that in the Belgian situation, the authorities want to look at the total care path, redesign it to allow for digital technologies before they fund anything. Rather than try it out and see how it goes and then implement it and then change the care path. We also know that the authorities are a bit reluctant, and so they have commissioned a health technology assessment report to our knowledge center in Belgium, which, as you may know, may lead to delay because we're going to have to wait until that report comes out on how to really value the mobile health applications. The good news, at least we have a couple of digital applications that are funded. Unfortunately, by the authorities themselves, they don't fit into M3, and we're still trying to figure out why exactly they don't fit into this model. Conclusion, the framework itself with the 3 layers, CE mark and GDPR, and then interoperability and technical IT and data safety, etc. And at the last stage, the reimbursement seems to be a good model that is understandable and works well. At this moment, we feel that confusion and fear is taking the upper hand. Luckily, we have a new Minister of Health and his new cabinet. They do want to move ahead, and we can clearly feel it. They are supporting progress. But as you may or may not know, COVID is still there, and it takes a lot of their attention at this moment. That was the 5 minutes, I hope, that was allocated. If you do have questions, my colleague who is today on holiday is the expert in all that pertains to digital health and is answering willingly your requests.
Thank you very much, Marnix. Brilliant.
You're welcome.
You fit very well on time. Thank you for that as well. And our next participant in our show, challenging show today, is nobody else but the one and only Jesper Grunberg, coming from Denmark. Jesper, please, stage is yours. And short to you, Jesper is the founder and CEO of the Health Tech Hub in Copenhagen. And Jesper, we are very looking forward to your presentation on how you regulate Danish healthcare. Here you go.
Thank you, and thanks for hosting it. So my name is Jesper. I'm the CEO of Health Tech Hub Copenhagen, which is which is an innovation hub a purpose-driven innovation hub that believes that every person should have access to good health. We work with startups, with businesses, with governments, with hospital organizations to make adoption of health tech at scale. We also want to our first goal is breaking the adoption bottlenecks in healthcare and open the way for clever health tech solutions to reach the people that they're meant to serve. And our long-term ambition is to improve the health and reduce health-related costs for 1 billion people worldwide. So that's also why we're here, because I think DiGA fits very well into this frame, and my team and myself have studied DiGA for more than a year, pretty closely. We've had the pleasure of having Henrik also share some of his knowledge, and we are very impressed with what you have done, and we are quite big fans. I'll just share a little bit about what we've done in Denmark so far. How has Denmark enabled digital health already? First of all, Denmark has been one of the first countries to have social security numbers. So we have had health data for at least 50 years. So we have very, very good health data. And we've had a tendency to actually use health data and also share health data across sectors as well. And that means that also we have centralized the hospital systems from plus 20 EHR systems to now only having 2 EHR systems across Denmark, and having electronic patient journals across both sectors, and people being able to read journals across. We're also fortunate to have a very IT literate population where almost everybody have access to internet at home, and 90% have a smartphone. We have also been, somebody in the ministries and the governments have been doing a good job in having e-prescriptions for at least 10 years now in Denmark. We have most of the communications done with hospitals are done electronically. We have had a pretty successful COVID testing and vaccine program due to this electronic and digital infrastructure. So all in all, I believe we have a pretty good IT maturity, a digital maturity. But I think maybe more importantly, we have a very high level of trust. So the citizens really believe in the public authorities. in the public authorities' apps, in the solutions they provide, and in them in handling data. That also means that the citizens actually actively use many of the solutions that are provided. So it means a patient can see the records, they can see the test results, they can see the medicine they're taking, they can see all kinds of things themselves. The GP can see it, and the hospitals can see it. And I definitely believe that COVID has acted as a catalyst, because both the healthcare sector and the patients have had a aha moment, a eureka moment, where we will see many more digital solutions coming out now. In Denmark, we are mapping the entire ecosystem of startups, and we have, luckily, as we heard earlier here, we have 3 startups with us today. So many startups are actually very interested in what is happening in Germany, and I think that's praise to you here. We have more than 200 startups in Denmark, and obviously they're very interested in what's happening in DiGA, and they would love to have something similar happening in Denmark, and that's what we are working on. So right now, how is it regulated? Right now, we actually do not have something similar to DiGA. That's why we're here. But we do have a pilot where we have tested something a little bit similar, but not with the same structure, and not with the same prescriptions, and not with the same reimbursements. However, when we speak to the startup communities, which we do every day, we definitely have this. This is a big ask, and I think it's a big ask only also for patients, because patients really need these solutions. Patients and citizens need these solutions too, and the healthcare system itself, even in a country like Denmark who has this digitalization, is under pressure. So we need these more solutions that are being prescribed and ordinated and bought and reimbursed. So we would love to see something very similar happening as DiGA, but even on steroids, and learning from some of the mistakes, maybe not mistakes, but some of the improvements we can do in terms of, I think, especially incentivizing the doctors to actually also do the work that is required for better adoption. I think with these words, I want to thank you. I want to thank DiGA for putting noise on this, because it does make a difference, and I think from our perspective, we believe this is a European agenda as well, that Europe should move ahead and try to, and we should also connect these initiatives across countries. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much, Jesper. And as Jesper said, and I don't want to preach to the choir, but DiGA, or digital health applications, is such a direct improvement of an everyday life of a patient. Normally in healthcare, you talk about frameworks and structures and legislation and all of that, which has only a very indirect effect on a patient's life. DiGA is the complete opposite. And this is why I believe we need to move forward, ideally also in a pan-European approach. And I want to continue now with a sister country of Denmark. We will go to Finland. And as Denmark is already very progressed in terms of digitization, Finland definitely is as well. They were among the first to have telemedicine established in their healthcare system. Any of the healthcare data that the Finnish healthcare system is generating is free for research, not only for academic research, but for medical research overall. I think that is amazing. And we will now have Jarmo Reponen. He is Professor of Practice for Health Innovation Systems at the University of Oulu in Finland. Jarmo, the stage is yours.
Hey, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to be able to share the current status of digital health in Finland. I'm also talking here in my presentation about the back office system which is needed for successful mHealth. In Finland, the healthcare services are mainly provided by public sector. That's 75% of expenditure. And then private sector and occupational health are providing the supplementary 25% of the services. We have, in a very sparsely populated country, 21 hospital districts, 5 university hospitals, and in the public sector, more than 100 primary healthcare centers. The first wave of digitalization took place in Finland already more than 14 years ago. So since 2007, all our medical patient records, all our picture archiving systems, all our laboratory systems have been only digital. And what we are proud of is this Kanta system, which is our national health information exchange in Finland. It has been up and running now 11 years. There are various components. The main components are the electronic prescription service. Then there is a patient data repository where all the health data from various institutions all around the country, whether public or private, is stored. And then we'll have the citizen access, which is called My Kanta pages. And the citizen access is important in that sense that citizens not only can view the information, but if they are using apps that are certified against the Kanta system, they can also store information to their own personal health records. What about the usage of the National Health Information Exchange? So all the public hospitals and all the public primary healthcare centers and mainstay of the private sector are using the patient data repository part of the system. And about the e-prescription center, so actually all the health players are using the system. And we also have the cross-border electronic prescription exchange possibilities between Finland, Estonia, Croatia, and Portugal. What about the usage of the citizen targeted service, the My Kanta pages, where citizens can have a look at the electronic patient records themselves? So every month, there are more than 1 million different citizen accessing the service, and there are more than 3 million different sign-ins by those citizens. And this has been speeded up during the COVID-19 pandemic. And one reason for this is that people now can have a look with their mobile phones, their test data, and they also can have a look information of their treatments there. Another mobile app that has been very important in our country is this COVID-19 pandemic symptom checkup app, which allows you to self-assess your symptoms, then book for the tests, and then book for the emergency department if that's needed. In the national level, the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health has initiated 2 programs which aim to develop Finnish healthcare further by novel digital healthcare technologies. The first program is so-called Ihre program, and that is to speed up the utilization of artificial intelligence and robotics in Finnish healthcare. And another program, Kati, its aim is to support smart aging and care at home. And then some words about the DiGA HTA. As you know, there are many kinds of novel technologies in healthcare, and therefore in Finland we have developed the health technology assessment method specifically for digital healthcare. And it will assess the technologies, not only mobile apps, but also artificial intelligence solutions and robotic solutions. And the Finnish coordinator Center for Health Technology Assessment in Oulu is in charge of this process. And the published DiGA HTA assessments can be found from the webpage that is mentioned there. In Finland, the DiGA HTA assessments are not yet linked to reimbursement, but relevant stakeholders have been publishing a public statement after a conference last August, and it said there that a clear operating model needs to be established for the assessment, recommendation, and reimbursement for health and well-being applications and digital services. So that's why we are very interested in cooperation with DiGA project and all the European experiences in this field. And this very shortly provides you information about the DiGA HTA assessment process in Finland. So the first step, as the company provides information about their product, and then the assessment is made. It takes about 2 months, and there are 2 work groups of experts. They are the HTA experts, and then there are data security and protection experts. And they will then have feedback discussions with the company, and if they all agree, they will publish the assessment results in the website where they have assessed the effectiveness, the safety, the cost, the data security, and also the usability and accessibility aspects. And as said, we are very eager to collaborate with all of you and exchange the views for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jarmo. Thank you very much for sharing with us the Finnish approach, how to digitalize the healthcare market. With no further delay, our next guest here live in Berlin on the stage, I'm flattered to welcome Mr. Christian Oberle. Christian is the president of the National Health Insurance and of the e-Health Agency of Luxembourg. Christian, stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm very happy to share some insight of Luxembourg e-health. And this morning, I felt relieved when, during the opening speech of Dr. de Patin, when he told us that Germany is number 16 of the EU digital ranking, because Luxembourg is number 15. And this was a real worry for me as president also of the e-health agency. I felt relieved because Germany will make it. And thanks to the dynamism of its digital framework. Germany succeeded in a short time frame, and velocity is a key success factor in Digit. So we as Luxembourg, we feel inspired by that. And I'm convinced that the playing field of DiGAs will be international. And Luxembourg is currently preparing to join this trend in enforcing the digitalization of its e-health ecosystem. We have no framework for the moment for DiGA, so we start from scratch. But we have some important realizations also in Luxembourg to enforce digitalization. January 2020, we launched the national patient file, and 1 year later, 100% of our citizens have their file opened, and also 100 of our insured people, because 40% of people working in Luxembourg come from abroad. This file is linked with a national e-health platform with a lot of services existing, and during 21 and 22 we will launch new use cases. So we will launch the use case of digital physician invoices. We started that now 1 month ago. Before the end of this year, we will launch the e-prescriptions. We will launch also the vaccination certificate in some weeks. We will launch next year. We will launch the e-incapacitations, and we have launched this summer. We have launched radiology images and findings on our e-platform. So the use cases will provoke that change management a speaker spoke about this morning. After about 20 years of blockade, we contracted in 2020 also with the Medical Association a modern and innovative patient-focused third-party payment system. This will be operational in 2023 and will be a catalyst for digitalization and change management. This year, we decided to introduce one single healthcare information system. So I emphasize on healthcare because we do not want one single hospital information system. We want to launch the single healthcare information system in Luxembourg that covers hospital and care sector. We will do the submission for that system in 22, and we will implement it starting mid-23. So this will be we think that this will be the opportunity of a tremendous improvement in interoperability and data quality. This is a major current weakness in Luxembourg. Security and confidence will be improved by 2 measures. We will create a national health data authority, and we visited Denmark in September of this year and inspired us by their model. We will also make an extension of our secured health net system to all stakeholders. This will be the basis of the health data hub in Luxembourg that will cooperate with all stakeholders. For a few years now, the Ministry of Economy pilots the Digital Luxembourg, and health is declared as one of the 4 major pillars to benefit from measures like, for example, broadband internet access for all, or supercomputers and new data centers located in Luxembourg, or a national data framework for interdisciplinary data exchange. So that are a few examples of preparing Luxembourg for new digitalized solutions, as, for example, the DiGAs. We think that DiGAs will be a key strategy factor to emphasize this transformation, and we believe that the approach should be European. We will prepare Luxembourg with short administrative paths. We will also prepare Luxembourg with a refunding system of DiGAs by our single national health insurance company. And we will ensure a strong interministerial cooperation for legal framework and business opportunities. But we will join the international cooperation, and what we our proposed method will be that we start via a great region with Benelux, Germany, France to make a rapid progress, but then after to join a European movement by assuming our European commitment and our responsibility. The Euro cooperation should aim harmonization in market access, harmonization of methods for recognition of scientific requirements, and harmonization to reduce major administrative barriers. As conclusion, I would like to repeat my enthusiasm for the German DiGAs. Luxembourg will be inspired, as we believe that DiGAs create the dynamism that will make health digitalization progress, and will help Germany to advance in the Euro ranking from rank 16 to rank 2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was, on the one hand, a very encouraging sign for harmonization on a European level for a DiGA-like framework. That's great to hear. And also great to hear of how you want to transform, in general, the Luxembourg healthcare system to a kind of digital health hub. That's also very exciting to hear. Now, in Germany, we have a long history of federal states managing healthcare, and that has some pros and some cons, especially in the pandemic. We saw some of the cons, to be honest. But we are not the only country, not the only large country in Europe that is very federal state organized. Spain is such a country as well. And I'm very happy to have now Javier Giles del Rio from the Galician Healthcare Service. In my understanding, in Spain, the federal states are very much in charge of organizing healthcare and thus also driving innovations in the healthcare system. So the Galician Healthcare Service is, for example, responsible for telemonitoring services, establishing a patient portal and the electronic health record in their region. And Javier, the stage is now yours for the next 5 minutes to outline what your plans are and to what extent you already have ideas for digital health applications. Thank you very much, Javier.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, guten Abend. First of all, I would like to thank the organization for inviting us to this impressive event. It's a pity not being in person in Berlin, but I will try to share our experience and approach to mHealth and health apps. Well, in 5 minutes, it's quite challenging. I hope most of you, are already familiar with the region of Galicia. We are one of the 17 regions in Spain. We are located in the northwest with a population of 2.7 million people. And healthcare is, definitely depending on regional structures. There are two public entities. One is the Regional Ministry of Health, which is a regional health authority. And a second organization is the Galician Healthcare Service. We call it Servicio Galego de Saúde, SERGAS is the acronym. We are a public institution that provides healthcare services to more than 95% of the population. We have a number of assets, 7 hospital trusts, 7 rural hospitals, almost 500 primary care centers, and 36,000 professionals working, and an annual budget of 4,000 million. 40% of the regional budget. Of course, digital strategy is part of a Galician healthcare service core. I would like to highlight 3 milestones that provide a backstage of information systems for building apps on top. In 1994, we started deploying the first regional information system that was oriented to manage hospitals. In 2004, The first hospital started using the regional electronic health record system, which went fully deployed in all hospitals and primary care centers in 2011. And in 2014, we went into a patient empowerment strategy. We launched a patient portal and also a regional telemonitoring system that works for all citizens and is based, of course, on technologies that depend on mobile devices and make these tools accessible for almost every citizen in Galicia. We are now providing citizens an app. It's called Sergas Mobile, and it's one of the cornerstones of our digital strategy. We have now more than 1 million downloads of this application. Of course, COVID has been a catalyzer, no doubt about it. But this application is a meeting point that now joins all our digital services. It provides a safe and secure authentication method and provides personalized high-value services. The patients, the citizens can access to electronic health records, to their appointments with the doctors or nurses, downloads and access COVID certificates, etc. But I think the most important part here is that these methods and this authentication and access to internal information system has been built using standards, so any app can be integrated into this digital ecosystem. New apps are being developed using this architecture, and they are mostly developed by companies through the usage of public procurement of innovation. We have built in this way an app for diabetes, also an avatar that enhances user experience, personal health record that allows the patient to upload and share information with the clinicians, and also integrates personal devices like Google Fit or some other applications in the market. And they're integrated using the same authentication methods, and they can obtain and provide information communicating into the main healthcare information systems. Well, I also wanted to mention and talk about a platform called mSaude. That's the word for mHealth in Galician language. It's a tool developed by Validea, a Galician IT company that was awarded in a public procurement of innovation process. And this platform has been designed to implement the life cycle of an app assessment process. It can be adapted to different protocols for validation. And in Sergas, we are using a cycle that first determines the risk level of an app according to a scale that takes into account the functionalities and the technical criteria. Then we apply different tests according to the level of risk that has been identified. So, well, just to finish, the description of this platform can be summarized as it is supporting the assessment process, maintains a catalog of certified apps for professionals and patients. It can be integrated with other healthcare information systems to facilitate prescription and recommendation by professionals. It has also been designed to facilitate data exchange of certified apps with other organizations that are following a similar process in a federated way. We are also communicating to other regions in Spain, like Andalusia, Catalonia, that are also working in these assessment processes, and we would like to exchange this information. And finally, well, it uses blockchain technology also to improve transparency and security in the assessment process. So, and my 5 minutes finish here, so thank you very much. That was everything.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you very much for your way, sharing your way on how you deal with health application from a regulatory perspective. Now from south to north, our next guest is Mr. Michel Silvestri. I hope really I pronounced the name correctly. Michel is head of unit coordination and strategy at the Swedish e-health agency, and he will be talking about what the core roles of the agency are and how does Sweden regulate the digital healthcare system. Here we go, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation. Greetings from Stockholm, Sweden. So we move right ahead, and the Swedish e-health agency is the national contact point for e-health in Sweden, and it's responsible for the coordination of the Swedish government's investments in e-health. Sorry for this. And the coordination that we perform is both on a national and an international level, as you see here. And we will dive into the national level a little bit more. So to start with, of course, on national level, we have national legislation and regulation when it comes to health data, and that is performed by the parliament and the government, of course. But at the same time, Sweden is divided into 21 regions or county councils, as you see on the right-hand side of this slide. And these regions are very autonomously responsible for healthcare within that local area. And they also have local taxation for that purpose. And then when it comes to social services, then we have 290 municipalities, also with a similar autonomy when it comes to that responsibility. So that's a challenge that I will get back to. And one consequence of this is that we do not have in Sweden a national electronic health record system. But when it comes to healthcare, it's in principle 3 major ones that you see here in 3 different colors. And you see also the national population divided into these different EHR systems. So when it comes to legal regulation, what is the current status? Well, it depends a little bit on whether we're talking about primary use of health data, that is direct healthcare or social service, or if we're discussing secondary use, for instance, when you reuse health data for research, innovation, policymaking, etc. So, of course, Sweden, as a member of the European Union, very much of this is regulated actually on EU level. So you know about the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. We have the proposal for Data Governance Act, which will probably have, perhaps for better, for worse, an impact on the European health data space. And also when it comes to primary and secondary use, which is the EHDS1 and EHDS2 here. When it comes to medical devices, of course, we have the medical devices regulation and also perhaps the in vitro diagnostics regulation. And I heard some colleagues discussing health apps or I mean, some commercial applications or similar that do not fall under the MDR. Then in that case, we are looking at the possibility to have some kind of certification system in Sweden and perhaps in collaboration with our Nordic country neighbors. On national level, we have the Patient Safety Act, the Patient Data Act, and the Public Access to Information and Secrecy Act as the major regulators of health data. So looking ahead then, well, we see the need for some minor adjustments when it comes to EU interoperability and also probably some new regulation when it comes to specifically secondary use. And Sweden and my agency and myself, we are involved in the European Union or the European Joint Action TEDAS, which is towards European health data space activity or project. And we will present from that project recommendations to the member states when it comes to national regulation. When it comes to the minor adjustment that I mentioned, and I've heard other colleagues discuss that in this session, about the e-prescriptions, that is one thing when it comes to cross-border use of this, and also when it comes to patient summary cross-border, we probably need some minor adjustments when it comes to regulation. So my last slides will be on the European health data space, and again, primary use and secondary use that I mentioned. And in this case, I think this figure very neatly shows the different layers of this. And we have the European health data space for primary use in the bottom here. And perhaps you can read that it says NCP, which is the national contact point of every member state within the European Union. And of course, we have the challenge of creating interoperability to make it possible to exchange necessary health data. For instance, when citizens of the European Union travel cross-border and need healthcare. And in this case, you could actually have the same picture in this case, and it would show you more or less the same situation on a national level in Sweden. And instead of the member states, it would be the different regions responsible for healthcare. So we have a challenge also on a national basis, a national level, to interchange or exchange health data. If we look at the secondary use of health data, that's the upper part of this figure on the right-hand side. And in this case, it might be a research institution in one country that applies for and wants to get access to data, health data from several different member states. For instance, doing research on rare diseases to get a critical mass for that. And in that case, you probably need data permit authorities on a national level. And again, that is also very much the situation on the national level, where we have the health data fragmented and hosted by several different institutions and regions within Sweden in this case. And of course, the question is whether we can use the same structures, the same infrastructure for both these purposes. And one challenge again is, of course, that these different applications or uses, they are regulated by different kinds of legislation. So that's another challenge that we have both on a national level, I would say, and also at a European level. So just to end my part of this session, in these cases, we often talk about data lakes. I think that perhaps we should look more to federative solutions or perhaps combinations of that. And in this case, I just want to end my part of this with a beautiful picture from the Baltic Sea and the island of Gotland. So with that, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michel. We are not standing at the shore of a Baltic Sea yet, but there's one more nation to come, and usually we go in alphabetic order, but we wanted to have the highlight of today's pitching at the very end, because their president just announced 3 weeks ago that they will copy 100% the German DiGA fast track, and that's a catalyst for today's event, and of course also for our harmonization dreams that we may now have on a European level. Nina Buffy is now in charge of implementing the DiGA fast track. She has a background in the startup ecosystem, so she knows also the other part of the world. And I'm very happy to have you now here, and the stage will be yours for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you. So as you all know by today, and by now today, in France, we are running a massive program in order to digitalize all of our healthcare system. This program is over €1 billion, and I'm not in charge of all of that, obviously. But just to let you know that I will focus today on what we're doing for digital health innovation, because it's what I'm involved in. But my colleague Isabel is here as well if you have questions about the general digitalization of the healthcare system, because we are really running very hard in order to catch up on those Scandinavian countries that are way ahead of us in terms of having everything digital. But we are also taking care of innovation in a very particular manner. Does that work? Yeah. We announced 2 weeks ago, actually, a €650 million program in order to support digital health innovation that goes in several stages. And this plan is targeting every single aspect of what you need in order to innovate in health in general, but more particularly in digital health. So we are going to take care of training, research, academia, our early stage startup scene, and then what we are most interested in today, the support and scaling of the products that will have gone through all of that innovation cycle. And the first step of this €650 million program is actually already done, because this year we launched a sub-program of €100 million to basically make a call to identify what are actually the actors and what are their needs. So we made a massive call for high-impact project programs in order to identify who was there, what ideas were around, and what did they need. We were targeting quite late-stage innovation projects that were already ready or not so far from ready to go to the market. And this is a glimpse of what type of projects have been received. The first one is a clinical and medical economic evaluation of a digital medical device for early care and therapeutic continuity for children with specific learning and language disorders. The second one, a national platform for pharmacology and artificial intelligence in order to target diagnosis. And the last one, a national platform combining pharmacology and artificial intelligence for the general public in order to help in the diagnosis and management of adverse drug reactions. So that's just giving you an example of projects that we have supported. And from all the calls that we gathered, we deployed the details of the plan, which is, as I mentioned, really this design in order to target everything that is taking place, that all the ingredients needed in order to accelerate innovation. So the first one is an education program. We are currently redesigning all the programs in all healthcare professionals so that digital health is included. And believe me, it's a huge amount of work. We also have running a research fund grant program in order to accelerate the emergence of rupture technology, disruptive technologies that will be in turn helpful in digital health. The biggest chunk of the program is on the support of the startup scene in healthcare innovation, and I'll come back to that a bit later. We also have a big chunk on validation and providing support to all clinical and medical economic validation that those companies need to do. And then the last chunk is not that big in terms of money, but this is where you also have the regulatory aspects, including our copy of the DiGA. So in terms of training, we aim at training, for example, 210,000 healthcare professionals, and we designed a really hands-on program in order to make sure that space is going to be given to healthcare professionals and also technicians, engineers, tech specialists to be trained and converge into this digital health innovation that we need. For the second pillar, the program supporting research is currently being designed, so it's not completely detailed yet. But for example, we would like to accelerate the numerical twins development. These type of approaches that are really high impact and disruptive will be supported by research grants. And then for the major chunk, here we have a major plan that's going to be dedicated to the support of medical imaging to make it really go to the next level, so that it really radiates and helps all the sector to grow faster. We also want to learn data challenges. So a data challenge is kind of a hackathon for digital health. So we have an action for that. We also have a grant program for new cases of digital health, and then another few small programs for to support the development of services and develop accessibility of e-health, because we, unlike the Danes, we do have a lot of digital illiteracy in the country, so we need to address that aspect as well in order to make it adopted. We are running as well a big program, and we launched it already, and we're already receiving applications for the support of clinical validation. So that's important for you to understand, because we are not addressing clinical validation support through our French way of the DiGA, French version of the DiGA. We are dedicating a whole fund and a whole support system to that. So our version of the DiGA does not incorporate it's not designed the same way as in Germany, in the sense that we are not using reimbursement as a way to help clinical evidence, but we are providing support separately in a different pocket. So that's the major difference between the two approaches. And we aim to support 50 clinical trials over the course of 5 years. On top of that, we also want to open 30 collaborative spaces so that tech people and healthcare professionals can meet in a physical place to innovate together, so where the medical needs will meet the technical possibilities. And we also have actions to clarify the processes and make it all easy for entrepreneurs and other industrials to run through the regulatory processes. All of that will be centralized in a platform called Genius that is already translated in English and accessible to all. And the goal of this platform is that you log in, you come to the homepage, and then depending on the question that you have, you are really taken care of in order to go step by step through all the things that you need to know in order to bring your innovation into the French market, including subsidies if you do have a local antenna of your company. And in that program as well, we have the reimbursement fast track. We call it the fast track, the DiGA, and another couple of actions to support scaling and European actions as well. So here are a few flagship actions that you can remember: 81 million for training, 100 million for clinical evaluation of medical devices, 50 million for grants in research, 63 for opening collaborative spaces in healthcare facilities, 50 other million to support new use cases in digital health, and almost 100 million for medical imaging, which when you look at it is not so much because these things are so expensive, but yeah. There is one slide missing. Oh, I'm so sorry. The only one slide that you are interested in is missing. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to brief you through the French version of the DiGA. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It's, so as I was mentioned, it's targeting devices that already have clinical data, because we are addressing the clinical data gathering before that in our specific program. It's designed for companies that already have the CE mark, clinical evidence, and the way we designed it is a fast track to open the door in order to get into the normal route. So you have 1 year to apply to the normal route, and during this 1 year, you're given a fixed price, and after that, the reimbursement price is tailored to your device. So that's basically the way we designed it. In terms of timelines, because that's important for you as well, we are currently in the process of making the law. So what I'm saying is subjected to changes, because the law will be voted by the end of the year. So the law is currently under revision at the Senate. It will go back to the Parliament. The Parliament already approved it. It will go back to the Parliament, and then hopefully it will be voted by the end of the year. With a few acts that remain to be written, it means that the law enforcement will be available by, we hope, spring, knowing that we also have some election background going on. And so we're trying to push it so that it's enforced before our elections that are happening on the 10th and the 24th of April next year. That's for the timeline. What else do you need to know? Yeah, I think that's it. And in the scope of this regulatory DiGA fast track, you have telemedicine as well, digital therapeutic, and it's designed so that it also includes prevention. That's all I think I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina. That is a very ambitious program, and it will definitely accelerate the digital healthcare adoption in France. Now, this was our tour d'Europe, to give you an overview of what's happening at the moment in various European countries. Now we want to have a panel discussion on how to put the puzzle pieces together, on how European countries that on a voluntarily basis want to actually can coordinate and harmonize their digital health regulation. We have a few guests on the stage which have not presented yet, and I would first like to ask everyone on stage who will be part of the panel, and then we have a quick introduction round for those who have not been pitching so far. And then I give a brief overview of the discussion that we ideally will have. And on stage are now Jochen Klucken for Luxembourg. Do you want to have a few, 2 sentences about yourself?
Okay, can you hear me? Now? Now?
Not yet.
I think it's 7.
Sorry, but it went off when I...
Now? Yeah. Okay, Jochen Klucken, University of Luxembourg, Head of Digital Medicine. It's a new chair in Luxembourg, trying to understand how DiGAs could work on evidence level. And I used to work in Germany, in Medical Valley area, and I initiated a CRO that helps companies to become DiGAs in Medical Valley, DMAC. And from there, I learned what DiGA needs. And in a way, I'm the first export from the German DiGA system to a European country.
Thank you very much, Jochen. Then we have on stage, and you all met him already earlier this day, Gottfried Ludewig for the German Federal Ministry of Health. We have Jan-Philipp Beck from EIT Health. Do you want to quickly say a few words about yourself?
Thank you, Henrik. Thanks for the invitation. Great to be here. So my name is Jan-Philipp Beck. I'm the CEO of EIT Health. EIT Health is a pan-European innovation network. We want to accelerate innovations to market. We have more than 150 partner organizations, a number of them, I think, also here in the room, that are part of our network. We are under the umbrella of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, which is part of the European Commission. We are not a commission agency, we're an independent organization, and we are very interested in working on supporting startups, of course, that can bring new solutions also in the digital health space to market that will improve outcomes for patients, of course, and also help to improve healthcare systems. So in that sense, we are very interested in the DiGA fast track, because I think it's part of our mandate also to see how can we support that the environment for innovation, the policy environment can improve. And I think it's a fantastic experiment that is underway here in Germany. And we would like to explore whether we can help that pan-European exchange here today to see if we can get more fast tracks, or ideally the same kind of fast track in as many European countries as possible. And yeah, I'm happy to join the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jan-Philipp. Moving over to Martin Curley from Ireland.
Great. Hello, everybody, and Henrik, thanks for the invitation. So I'm here in 3 capacities. I'm a professor of innovation at Maynooth University, so I can constructively criticize what we're doing in Ireland as an academic. I'm here as a patient because we are all patients. This is the one sort of industry that we're all part of, but I also lead digital health transformation for Ireland. I can describe our strategy and approach in 3 sort of small memes. First, leap ahead. So Ireland is number 6 in the DESI index, but we are last actually in the digital health rankings. In 2020, we were with Serbia and Romania in terms of our position on telehealth. We have a unifying strategy, and not everybody agrees with it. We call it stay left, shift left. But every single investment we look at, we say, does this help Ireland stay left, shift left? So we're looking for 4 kinds of characteristics. Does it improve the quality of care? Does it reduce costs? Does it improve quality of life? And lastly, does it achieve a better patient and clinician experience? And we were able to compare, for example, a robot that will kill COVID and MRSA using ultraviolet with an application that will monitor somebody with COPD remotely in the home. So we have set a goal to be a European digital health leader by 2025. So I was really envious this morning, and I imagined us being here in 5 years and saying, here's how Ireland transformed from being a laggard to a leader. We're using a very simple methodology called Open Innovation 2.0. And that's all about orchestrating the entire ecosystem around a shared vision. And we have been able to build quite a bit of momentum over the last 1.5 years. So we're really admiring what Germany has done. We want to take a lead from Germany. Why reinvent the wheel? We have an informal process. We use a network of living labs. And we take new technologies actually very early, and we actually iterate them with patients and clinicians in a hospital, in a home, and we move them through a proof of concept, through a demonstrator, and then hopefully to broad adoption. But I think there's a unique opportunity today actually to use the momentum for the conference to see how we can harmonize across Europe. You know, I think it's a shame that HIH dissolves, but I think the legacy has to be, and Jan-Philippe and I were talking about this earlier on, out of this conference, I think there's actually a responsibility that we create some sort of European group that actually takes responsibility for leading this harmonization. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and that was already diving into the discussion. Let's have Isabelle Sabli first introduce herself from the French Ministry of Health.
Thank you for the invitation. In fact, I'm working the same team as Nina in the Ministry of Health in France. So we are part of the e-health delegation, so the youngest directorate of the ministry, only founded back 2 years ago. I have to say, frankly, that it's in a very nice feeling that I'm taking the floor right now, because we tend to describe our action in France as being a collective action in response to what was in the past a collective failure, and we move together with the whole ecosystem towards collective success. And I think it's just a very nicer way to take on all those nice topics. And I feel here that we have also kind of collective movement towards the DiGA and more broadly said towards digital health. So it's a very good feeling. I'd like to add a small piece also to what has been said regarding the construction of My Health at EU, because I feel it's also a kind of connective actions. Most of you've mentioned that you are part of this major European ambition to build on the European health data space for primary use of data. We are actually also very proud to be part of it. We've been receiving the green light last July, so we are live on the first service, which is patient summary that we receive from other countries, 4 countries at the time being, and probably about 10 before year end, so it's very good. And we are working in about the potential deployment of further services in the near future as part of our acceleration plan in France.
Thank you very much, Isabel. We have on Zoom Manix Denis, still from Belgium. Manix, we already had your introduction early on, so thank you very much for staying with us and for being here in the panel discussion. And from Finland, we now have Jari Haverinen. He is the Finnish coordinating. He is at the Finnish Coordinating Center for Health Technology Assessment. Jari, do you want to say two sentences about yourself and your role there, maybe?
Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for the invitation to this panel. So I'm working as a senior planning officer in the Finnish Coordinating Center for Health Technology Assessment, and my role is to develop health technology assessment methods for all kinds of digital healthcare technologies. And as Jarmo mentioned before, that we developed the DigiHTA process so that we can support the introduction of all kinds of novel digital healthcare technologies in Finland. So I think that there are a lot of need for the evidence-based information about all kinds of digital healthcare technologies. And in Finland, we have already the criteria and assessment process in place, but the next step is to link assessment for the reimbursement, to link the reimbursement for the assessments. So I think that this international cooperation is very important for that to perform that task.
Thank you very much, Jari. And now to structure this discussion, because we have 9 countries sitting here on one stage and it's a complex topic, I want to first give you in a few slides my understanding what a future process and structure may be, and which I would love to discuss so that we have one kind of framework that we can now have in the panel discussion. If I could have my slides on the screen again, thank you very much. First of all, and that's important to note, this is not about having the German DiGA fast track in Europe. We have done some early works, we have a lot of learnings to share, and we want to give you all of that, plus the idea of a stronger harmonization in terms of regulation. The German version of the DiGA fast track has obviously still challenges to solve because we're just 1 year in track, but that's definitely something that when any other European country is at the same situation at the moment, looking at this topic, looking at how to regulate the space, it makes sense to coordinate. And this is why we have this panel discussion. And this also is part of the pitching. Every country at the moment is looking into this space. Second, this is not a European Commission panel discussion or movement. This is every nation that wants to participate is on board thing at the moment, and this is probably something that makes life a bit easier in terms of getting up to speed. And then what we have done here was new in terms of market access and solving reimbursement. There will be various alternatives in the various countries because every healthcare system is so different. But today's discussion should be on where do we have common grounds. And for common grounds, I want to share with you what we call the 5-stage model. And I want to answer or discuss with you 5 major questions, and you should see them also on the screen. If not, I'm sorry for that. First, market access. If we can agree on similar terms of what market access means and how it's organized, we have already more than 50% of the journey kind of solved together. Then, and I call this now not DiGA because DiGA is very much connected to the German version, I call it digital health application, the English version, so it's a DiHA. How is a DiHA defined? And we will come to that in a second. Third, evidence generation, and I guess we have most of the discussion today about that part. Do we agree on the same requirements or standards of patient-centric benefits? Fourth, reimbursement and having said this already, that is probably a very national topic because of the diversity of healthcare system. And last but not least, price negotiations, again, probably very nation-specific. And in the dark colors are the topics that I see can be taken from the DiGA fast track on a European level without problems, and the light ones are probably very German-specific and should be at least discussed. First, we have this MDR process. We are only talking about CE-certified medical products. We are not talking about the vast majority of health, lifestyle, and fitness apps that are somehow on App Store and Play Store. We are only talking about the few that have been CE-certified. We defined in Germany that we will start with the low-risk classes. That can be discussed, obviously. We took this decision because we were the very first and we don't want to screw things up. If you go with low-risk classes, the worst that can happen is nothing. If you go with high-risk classes, there's a lot more severe causes that are possible. And then we very much base everything on GDPR, which is already pan-European, so that is probably easy. DiGA definition, we focus on the patient in Germany, but that can obviously be different for other countries. Main function relying on digital technology, I think that we could have a joint foundation here. Functionalities in accordance with MDR, that is European anyways. And then our healthcare integration is very specific to the German system. That is probably something that can be done differently. Evidence generation, this idea of having also preliminary listing proved to be very important and successful in Germany because only 6 out of 24 are permanently listing. In other words, we would only have 6 DiGA in the system if we would have only gone for permanent listing. So our strong recommendation would be to have also the option of preliminary listing. And then who pays what, how is reimbursement done, and how our price is defined, that is all very nation-specific. So in summary, and maybe we leave this for a moment for everyone to digest, this is our proposal. Oh, I'm sorry, and the flags are wrong way around. Evidence generation should be European and reimbursement should be national. Sorry for that, copy and paste. But the left-hand side, 1, 2, 3, is, from our understanding, already very much defined on a European level. 4 and 5 is probably more on a national level to be defined. Having said that, I'm now very happy first for your gut feeling, first responses, and then we structure and see how do we get, how do we take it from here. Who wants to share first his or her feedback? Jesper.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, if I take my startup hat on and look at the startup's perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to harmonize the rules on 1, 2, and 3. You know, so a startup from Germany can sell its solutions in France, in Denmark, in Luxembourg, and in all other countries. And I think that it's a benefit, of course, for the startup, but I think most importantly, it's a benefit for the patients. You know, because that means that more patients will have access to more quality solutions. So I definitely think it's a no-brainer, basically, from my perspective.
Other feedback, Jochen?
I really like this, and I think in particular this aspect of evidence generation is something where we can learn from the DiGA process also for a European concept. And that is a new definition of what is evidence, in particular with the structural and procedural components of evidence. I do not like the word, by the way, structural and procedural, because all of these type of evidences are patient-centric evidence, so not making benefit for the system, but for the patient. And I think if the patient and the problem of the patient in his healthcare concept is the major lead of what we talk about here, what is a DiGA or how do we define it? And we say we come to a joint definition of evidence and see if this fits to all European countries, then we have the ideal denominator to make this concept a European concept.
Gottfried?
I would just add, so agree with everything already said. With the evidence generation, I think just to keep in mind that the preliminary listing is very much connected actually to the medical device regulation, just sticking with the classes 1 and 2A, because if you go to 2B or 3, I think you will have a challenge to keep the preliminary listing, so just to keep that in mind, because we struggled with that quite a bit. And I would always argue to support and to foster digitalization and the startup scene. I think it's better to stay for the first years with the preliminary listing instead of having other classes integrated in the system. But this is open for discussion, just my personal perspective on that topic. Regarding the evidence generation. Otherwise, I agree totally with you. I think market access, application of manufacturers, and evidence generation, this could be something really important if we achieve a European perspective, a common European perspective on that, because reimbursement obviously always will stick with the national level. I think there is no doubt. And last point, very important to accept the market access from one country with the other. So if the BfArM is listing a product, I think it would be wonderful if also the French regulatory bodies could accept that, and otherwise around, obviously, if the French regulatory bodies list DiGA, as we call it now, it's wonderful if also the Germans could accept that, right? This would be a huge step forward, I think.
First Martin, then Nina.
Great. I really like common description of evidence and how we can use that, but actually a key problem is policy. Bernardo Mariano Jr., who's now the CETO at the UN, he has been talking for the last couple of years saying technology is no longer the problem, it's sufficiently mature, it's the policy and the policymakers, and if you're relying on evidence-based policymaking, there actually is no evidence. Steve Jobs didn't look for evidence, he just went and invented sort of the iPhone. I think what could be very helpful with this model, and I think it's really useful to actually have a structure and the 5 layers, is to come up with a taxonomy of digital health solutions. So we've been collaborating in Ireland with the UK Department of International Trade and Healthcare UK, and we've come up with a draft taxonomy, and we've been testing it with UK companies and Irish companies, and it's something that we're finding helpful, and we would like to put that in as an open innovation contribution to take this as a very basic framework and see how we could develop it further, because I think having the taxonomy and being able to distinguish between something that's empowering self-care in the home or something that's dealing with healthcare, acquired infections, in hospital are completely different, but they're all DiGAs. So I think a common taxonomy, certainly in Europe, would be very helpful.
Nina?
So I can give you my feedback from already trying to copy-paste the DiGA from one country to the next. And what we've come across is that the differences in the juridical perspective and the way that the laws are written from one country to the next makes it very difficult to have something harmonious. So maybe something that we can think about is exactly what you said, having a common language and common expectations that declines then specifically maybe in a collection of things that will shape differently from one country to the next, but having a global platform that helps companies and entrepreneurs to navigate throughout the different countries. And for that, I really like the idea of trying to have an automatic, at least for reimbursement, approval from one country to the next. And I even want to take it further because, in the digital world, we are more agile, and it's the tech world, and so we're supposed to move faster than anywhere else. And that could be a very, very beautiful playground in order to scale that to the whole medical device industry.
Jan Philipp?
Yeah, thank you. Henrik, what I find really intriguing, and I think it seems to resonate with everyone here around our table in the room, is that there is a certain simplicity in this. So I think when there were the pitches here, we see that there's so much amazing stuff going on, also including all the data aspects and all of these things. And I think that's all incredibly important, but I think there could be fantastic value in actually starting with this core, benefiting also from continuous learning maybe that could come from your experience, and say, let's try to keep it as lean as possible and focus on this piece in pillar 3 of this mutual recognition or whatever we want to call it, because I think that could be, as it was said already, of enormous value. And then see maybe also in other countries there might be great other stuff coming. What you mentioned, right? Maybe there is, you know, open innovation frameworks that can help startups get through this piece and so on. All of that could, I think, be tested in additional trial and error. But let's try maybe to see to get that core in its beautiful simplicity implemented. I think that seems to me almost like an obvious thing to go for.
Thank you. I'm a very simple person. That's why this is very okay. Jari and Marnix, do you also want to add your impression?
Yes,
I
think
heard the. Sorry, go ahead, Jari. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I think it's very good goal that we are moving to some kind of general approach in the EU level. And I think that it's as someone mentioned, that way we get the best quality apps which are already available in every countries, and also for countries like in Finland, we have small country, and I think that in Finnish companies also, if they can prove in Finland context that they are very quality apps, then they get market access to whole Europe also.
Marnix?
First of all, on the risk aspect, I do agree a lot with the German approach of starting with 1 and 2A. I think that makes a lot of sense, and you get a lot of momentum that way by taking the fear out of the decision making, because there's a lot of that. Second, we didn't talk a lot about data, but as I said in the pitch, I feel a lot of resistance. Basically, I don't know whether it's really fear or just not knowing about data and data storage. We have discussions here internally with the authorities where the data is stored, and that already puts red flags on. So I think data and maybe there's a sixth framework that you need to add into this system to have something about data. And then taxonomy, I said it in the chat. I think a good starting point is indeed have the proper definitions for all the various digital health solutions, because there's many, and we shouldn't confuse telemonitoring from teleconsultation, from mobile applications, diagnostics, etc. So,
thank you. And
it's a really good start.
In regards to data, for example, the German DiGA fast track is very strict on that, defining that data is only stored in the European Union, for example, and that it's never to be given out to any third party for whatsoever reason, unless there's the consent of the individual. But I fully agree with you. These are topics that we need to define in great detail, that they also work on a European level. Maybe to summarize the first round, and this is of course biased because you all volunteered to be here, but I see a lot of common agreement on having a strong harmonization, that those first 3 steps are of course to be defined in greater detail, but we agree in general that these 3 steps are the ones that are most likely to be harmonized, while everything else will most probably stay on a national level. There may be variations in step 1 to 3 on a national level, but for now it seems that there is a great support to have this harmonization between countries. Also because from a supply-demand perspective, if we create one common market within our countries, then we already have a jump start. We already have those 24 solutions from Germany, plus the 21 that are already in the pipeline, plus the ones that will now definitely come from France, given all the support you're giving to the ecosystem, plus Denmark and Ireland and so on. So it would create at once one very compelling market with solutions that are directly implementable in the daily lives of patients. And we spare reinventing wheels and having, I think it was it Marnix or Jesper, someone mentioned that there will be some more studies being published that will take a couple of more years, so we know nothing will happen in the meantime. Now we have momentum. Now we have 2 large countries plus several other countries, and Christian Oberle just mentioned it for Luxembourg, for example, that you're very eagerly looking at what's happening here and discussing how to implement this also in a third country. Very strong momentum on that end, and that's amazing. And of course, we are not at a perfect solution yet, but we have a common understanding in which direction we want to head. Now, my second question would be, how do we get there? This is a start. We invited EIT Health for some reasons, because we will dissolve and we need someone who is coordinating. And there are not too many institutions on a European level which understood individual healthcare systems and can take over this job. So this is why we invited you guys. But how do we take it from here? Isabel, you wanted to react.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to really stress one point. Well, I think there is a common agreement that it's a very good idea to move towards harmonization. At the same time, you have stressed earlier the fact that EU law was probably a very difficult obstacle. Despite our, our commitment here, we also have to recognize that we have our national boundaries, and national laws are sometimes also not very easy to change. So this is something we are very much used to work with in our department, Nina and myself, and it shouldn't be a barrier. That's also kind of my message. We need to be smarter than that. We need also to take the lessons learned from the EU Digital COVID certificate, because everything that was impossible before, meaning to have on a very short time frame both technical requirements, regulation and implementation in a few weeks in Europe seemed to be impossible. Now we have seen that it was possible. So we need to take, on one hand, the lessons learned of that. We need also to recognize that we have our national boundaries, but we need to move smartly. And for me, it raises also the point of what do we need in terms of digital health governance in Europe in the future. And this is really a question mark whenever you look at our way ahead of us building the European health data space. So I think this is a very key question, not only for the next months, but for the years to come.
Yes, thanks. Not me. Yeah, thank you, Henrik. So, well, how could we bring this together? Maybe one thing that I haven't said in my introduction is that EIT Health actually is a quite regional organization. So we have 8 regional innovation hubs that are scattered across Europe, covering, I think, all of the countries that are now here in discussion. I think that is very, very important, and those are locally embedded teams that we could connect to. Now, being inspired, basically, Henrik, by your model of being sort of close here, close to the ecosystem, understanding those needs for driving those discussions, this is something I think that we could strive to provide. Together with a bit of, yeah, I guess it needs this bit of central, let's say, coordination to learn from each other, but also to have a reference framework where we say this is what we would like to achieve together, and continuously sort of see how we progressing towards that aspect. And that's of course also something that I believe we could certainly provide. However, and I think this is the other element that has been a success factor for the Health Innovation Hub, I think you've had a strong mandate from the German government to drive this forward, and I think from my perspective has been a very successful model of having you a bit like an outsourced kind of think tank, innovative, dynamic group, but very closely connected. And I think that in order for us to be successful in what whatever form, in collaboration with local actors and so on, it will probably also need this kind of mandate, saying, yes, we want that, right? We would like to move, or at least try to move in this direction. Well, if this is given, so if there's mandate, if there's willingness, and of course you would need to give me the time to convince you that we have the capability to do it, then I think it would wonderfully fit to our mission, which is two things. One is supporting innovation in Europe and its acceleration, but it's also to basically use what we learn and also use our understanding of the barriers to this to try to impact that policy environment and see how can we make the environment better for innovation to thrive that has good purpose. And so it would fit very well to us, and we would be more than happy to try to continue, carry the torch or follow in your large footsteps, whatever you want to call it, and work with all of you.
Martin and Nina, in a minute. One of the success factors of our work has been that definitely we had a strong mandate, meaning the transformation agenda of the Federal Ministry of Health was what we, from the bottom of our heart, could support anyways, and that was happening. Yet, we never had, and Gottfried needs to hear away for a minute, but we never had a defined mandate.
You took it.
When Jens Spahn, the Minister of Health, introduced us in March 2019, he said, I don't know what they should do because we don't know how digital transformation happens. These are smart guys. I give them credit.
That is a mandate.
That is a mandate.
This was the mandate.
This was the mandate. But what I want to encourage all of you, if you are convinced that this is the right direction to go, just go. Because no one else has a better idea as of now. And to me, after having worked 2.5 years on this topic, it's also for me the best idea that I came up with. And despite all the challenges that we still have, it works. We have now 24 solutions out, 50,000 and more people are using the solutions. They have an impact in their everyday life. So I want to strongly encourage you. Of course, you need funding and formal mandate and all of that, but we have some momentum here, and this is very much catalyzed by President Macron saying we just copy that. That's our time in Europe. We need to really make use of the next couple of months. This may not come again. Martin.
Great, so I think there's a couple of innovation rules apply here. First, necessity is the mother of invention, so we have a need. Alan Kay used to say the best way to predict the future is to invent it or innovate it, so we need to do that. Another golden innovation rule, I think it echoes what you said, is seek forgiveness, not look for permission. So I think we need DG Santé involved, we need DG Connect, we need DG Research, but they need to align. What we need is a Switzerland, somebody that has the convening authority, and I actually think EIT Health actually could be our Switzerland. So I'm with Jan-Philippe. I don't think we should leave Berlin without a plan. So over the dinner tonight and tomorrow, we should have a draft plan that we buy into. We should aim to repeat this conference next year somewhere else in Europe and continue the momentum. There's a huge opportunity for Europe and a huge need, and we're all in it together. So EIT Health, 12 points.
And Nina.
Yeah, on the mandate, I totally agree on the fact that it's super important. And the way that's been done in France is by incorporating those youngsters buzzing around inside the Ministry of Health to make the change from within, which doubles up on the efficacy and the speed that we can have, because it's easier to embark the other institutions, because it's a micmac of a lot of layers of institutions, and gives it a lot of legitimacy to embark them. And we can also use their services to go faster. So that's one thing. And then to answer your first question that you asked on where should we start, I was thinking that looking at what you put on the slide, which is brilliant, to me, evidence generation could be a way to quickly win on two ends, because as being a former startupper, I know how much it's a nightmare to have to run a trial in one country and then another. And you need so much money to run those several countries just to get reimbursement, right? So if we could agree on a framework of what are the requirements that qualify a good digital health clinical trial for our respective reimbursement systems, that could be a good way to serve the ecosystem and to harmonize, very technically and practically on something to start with. That's my 2 cents.
I would just like to add, I think we need the 2 levels. I think you mentioned before the EU Health Network, right? So, which in the Corona period of time found a new kind of momentum of moving very with a new kind of speed forward, and I think we need that. So we need the level of the whole integrating each and everyone from the European Union. On the other side, we need something what happens today here, right? So this is more a kind of alliance of volunteers, of people who want to get things done maybe in a faster way, or who want to think about it in a faster way, and to want to experience or who want to collect experience for that. And I think we just have to have both levels to move forward. And I couldn't agree more with what you said, Henrik, before. We have momentum. And I think we have momentum because like France is moving forward, other countries are trying something, and we have momentum because of COVID-19 and Corona, because also the European level, at least from my point of perspective, never was so quickly moving forward as they did in the last 12 months. So we should use that and not getting back in the old kind of thinking like we need for that another 7 years, because then the momentum obviously will be gone. And this is a unique momentum because we get the calls from Israel and from US and from the NHS, what are you doing there? And we want to do that as the same. So there's really a chance for Europe for moving forward. And I just want to stress that we should use the momentum.
First Jochen, then Jan Philipp, and then we are also...
Yeah, just trying to make it short. I think the model topic, the stage 4 and 5, fit very well with the national digitalization plans, because every country has a plan to do something. And the first level is defined already, MDR, GDPR. So the evidence is in fact not defined yet. So we do not have to change something, because it's not existing there. So if we say now we agree on a joint evidence definition, then this could be the starting point also, which enables harmonization with the national and the European stratification. So that is one definitely important thing. But I just want to mention one last thing that is missing. And thank you, you mentioned it, the only one today, education. Training of people using this. This could also be some European strategy, because again, the patient needs are similar and there's a big gap. And in a way, the Health Innovation Hub was the first level of training, telling us how to do it. And I think there should be going into the university, into the training, as you said, big money into this. I think this is definitely probably an aspect that should also be considered on a European level.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the initial positive feedback. Very happy to be Switzerland. I think it's great. Just briefly to education, I mean, this is also a big topic for us, at least, I mean, something to be explored, at least the general needs, things that we identify as being common in different countries. That's something that one could do. I wanted to come back to one thing which I believe, or two things more. I think one is, you mentioned the discussion with the Commission, with DG Connect, with Santé. I think, yes, it should be done. I think from an EU perspective, I would believe, well, this is actually, I mean, this is great, because European legislation is actually leveraged, right? So the whole pillar 1 that's there, so what better could you actually imagine? And then countries proactively building on that. So I think there's positive momentum, and there's potentially a positive spin. And then the other element is that, I mean, Macron made his statement, and he repeated it at the lunch the day after with investors that I was fortunate to attend, is he repeated this in connection with making Europe a more successful, a more attractive market also, right? And I think we shouldn't forget that. It should enable us to allow companies to scale really in Europe and to scale faster. And that's not only interesting, I think, from a business perspective. It's interesting because it will bring more innovation in digital that's made in Europe. And that should be good, because it will serve our healthcare systems and our people. So I think this is a very good path, and a great opportunity for Europe and all of us. Thank you, Henrik.
Manix and Jari, we don't want to forget you. Do you have something to add here? Manix first?
No, not really. I won't take time if it's not necessary. I think this is a good start. I would like to be, you know, in the loop of what's going on, and I will certainly work with the authorities here to show that France is following the German system. I think that's incredible news that will send a shock to the system here and maybe wake up some people.
Great, thank you. Jari?
Yes, I think it is a very good approach, but I think that's not easy job to harmonize all requirements between different countries. But I think that the evidence generation is the biggest issue. So if we can that way get the formal process how to companies provide evidence for the authorities, I think this is a very good approach. But I think this is a very good approach, but not easy job to do.
All right, and it's definitely not easy. It's something that needs to be created together, and this is exactly what's happening tomorrow afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m. We have the Evidence Con. That's 100% on this topic without any initial strategic planning here. But we had the Evidence Con already in February, which was a major success because it was the first of its kind to have a focused discussion on digital health application evidence generation. And we need to drive this forward. Tomorrow is hopefully not the last of its kind, but it's definitely the next one to happen. And this, I want to encourage all of you to participate also in tomorrow's discussion when we discuss how evidence shall and may be generated to support the claims of digital health applications. So that's happening tomorrow from 2:15 p.m. At 2 p.m. we have the great honor to have Jens Spahn here, the Federal Minister of Health, without whom we would not even sit here because he was the one who made it happen that the German Parliament passed the DVG, the law that enabled the DiGA fast track. And that's maybe a nice conclusion for today. Thank you all for being here today. It was a great pleasure to have so many European countries representing their healthcare systems, their ambitions towards digital health, and also to find now this common ground of how to proceed, focusing on evidence generation, having a common understanding that many of the pillars are anyways defined on a European level. And I think that's a strong signal which we can send out from tonight here from Berlin. Thank you all very much for being part of this first day of the Digital Medicine Conference. I wish you now a great afternoon. We have some food here who's live in Berlin. Everyone else, see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock at the Digital Medicine Conference for our medical venture validation, and then at 2:15 for the Evidence Con, touching exactly on the major topic that we discussed here today. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend. Tschüss.